What's up, guys? Welcome to Ant Talk, the weekly comic conversation. Today I'm joined here by my guest, and today I want to talk about American Horror Story Season 6 and my thoughts on the first 7 episodes. I wanted to do a video on this after episode 5, but I didn't really get a chance to get around to it, so I figured I'll do it after episode 7, the week of Halloween. So I've been a pretty big fan of American Horror Story since I started watching the second season on TV. And while I was watching it week to week on TV, I went back and I watched the first season on Netflix. I binge watched that, and I've been a big fan of the series ever since. Season 2 remains my favorite. For the most part, I would say I enjoyed seasons 3 and seasons 4, Coven and Freak Show. I know a lot of people are kind of split on those seasons, but they have their pros and cons, and they definitely have their moments. And overall, I would say, I enjoyed it. I've just always thought American Horror Story was really creative and really well done, especially those first 2 seasons, Asylum being my favorite. Season 5, Hotel, is probably my least favorite. At least in my opinion, I really think the show misses Jessica Lange in this season. She's kind of replaced by Lady Gaga. She's fine, I guess, but her storyline's just kind of whatever to me. It's kind of boring, to be honest, and it doesn't really pay off the way you would want it to. And I think a lot of that season's pretty predictable as well. But again, there are things I did like about it. One thing I like about this series and all the seasons is the acting and the performances are usually just incredible. If you follow American Horror Story, then you know that they reuse, or at least they like to reuse, a lot of the same actors in different seasons playing different roles for different stories. And I think that's really cool. It's one of the things that kind of draws me to it. Back when I first started watching this show, I thought, wow, this is what I want horror movies to be like. Because I wasn't always the biggest fan of horror movies. I thought a lot of them were kind of stupid. Since then, I've opened my mind and discovered some really good films. But American Horror Story, I've always really dug, and I always thought it was very creative, and this is how I like horror. The show has never really relied on jump scares, just weird and twisted themes with great actors pulling out great performances. So yeah, American Horror Story, always a show I look forward to watching, especially this time of year around Halloween. What do you think? Alright, so this season, Season 6, Roanoke, or My Roanoke Nightmare, before episode 1 aired, there really wasn't any details given about what this season was going to be about. There wasn't an official trailer. We got a lot of teasers that seemed to have a lot of different themes, and it was really hard to follow, and you couldn't really tell what the season was going to be about. It starts off different from any other season. It's set up like a show within itself, really. It's set up like one of those shows where you have real life people who went through a real life experience, and then they tell their story through interviews, while it cuts to a reenactment of the event played by actors. In this case, you have a married couple, Matt and Shelby Miller. Now, the real Shelby and Matt are played by Lily Rabe and Andre Holland, while the actors playing them in the reenactment are Cuba Gooding Jr. and Sarah Paulson. They bid on a house in North Carolina that's pretty much in the boonies, and they dump all their savings into this house, trying to ensure winning the auction. Now, before I get into spoilers, I just want to give you some of my overall thoughts. But it'll be kind of hard because a lot has happened by episode 7. But I will say I'm pretty intrigued, and I honestly don't know exactly how I feel about this quite yet. The first 5 episodes seem like its own mini-season that I was just okay with. Wasn't really mind-blown or anything like that. But I will say I was pretty into it. As Matt and Shelby attempt to settle into their new home, mysterious things start happening, and it really seemed like they were going back to the first season, or at least the feel, in the sense that a family or couple are looking for a new start and they buy a house which turns out to be haunted. But there was something more to it that was a little hard to explain. Maybe it's the significance of the woods or the land surrounding the house. I definitely feel like I noticed some references to other horror films like The Blair Witch Project and The Grudge, just to name a couple off the top of my head. Without spoiling any details, I will say that the first half of this season and the most recent couple of episodes feel like two different shows, even though they are both very directly connected. Episode 6 is really when the show regained my attention. At the moment, where they've taken it is actually pretty creative and pretty entertaining if you ask me. Really can't wait to see where it goes. And this season is actually pretty hard to predict. The way this season and the story is set up is definitely a different approach, and it's interesting. Everyone does a good job acting, of course, but I really like the addition of Cuba Gooding Jr., and Kathy Bates is really a standout to me. Now, if you don't want anything spoiled, I suggest this is where you stop watching, go catch up, and then come back. But I'm really going to only go into this for a couple minutes. So, like I said, Matt and Shelby Miller buy this house in the middle of the woods in North Carolina. Now, this land they are on, during the blood moon, is basically when the souls condemned to the land walk the earth, that kind of thing. These people are most of the settlers of Roanoke. Now, Roanoke, if you look in history, you'll find Roanoke is a colony on an island off the coast of North Carolina where mysteriously everybody vanished without a trace. Even until this day, there is no evidence of what happened to the settlers of Roanoke. But in American Horror Story, they are here with their leader, the Butcher. I'm not going to get super into their story. If you really want to know, just go watch it. But so hey, why do you have half your face covered up anyway? Ooh, never mind. On this show where Shelby and Matt are telling the story through interviews, Kathy Bates plays the Butcher in the reenactments. Now, she does a really good job if you ask me, but before I tell you really what's going on with her, I'm just going to say that the first half of this season, like I said, they're telling their story, and we're seeing it through reenactments. Now, since they're telling the story, we know, or at least we can assume, that they're gonna get out of this. And they do by episode 5, which actually seemed to make a lot more sense to me because those first 5 episodes, it really got going fast. And I'm like, how can this really keep up for a whole season? So it really made sense. But like I said, you kind of knew they were gonna live. And I was always wondering how that the future or the real them telling the story, how that was going to come into play later. And we see how it does in episode 6. So after My Roanoke Nightmare was a huge success, the producer wants to make a follow-up series. Now, this time he wants to take Shelby Miller, Matt Miller, the real ones, and Lee Harris, who's Matt Miller's sister. I know I forgot to mention her earlier, but she came to the house to live with them or to stay with them. Now, Adina Porter is the actress that plays the real Lee Harris, and Angela Bassett is playing the actor portraying Lee Harris. She actually plays a pretty vital role in the first half. She's an alcoholic cop having trouble in her personal life. Her husband left her. Between them, they have a daughter. When the father brings her out for a visit, the husband ends up getting killed by that pig, ghost thing, whatever, and they take the daughter. So a big chunk of the first half of the season is trying to get the daughter back. Now, even though this show was actually a big hit with America, nobody actually really believed the ghost stories were real. They thought it was an entertaining show and all, but they didn't really believe in the ghosts. So the producer wants to throw them all back in that house, along with the actors that portrayed them, in one big real-world situation. Now, with this reality show approach, the last couple of episodes have been in the style of found footage, but it seems way more well done than actual found footage. So it's really like I'm watching the show still, and it's not really too distracting. Now, there's some drama after the My Roanoke Nightmare concluded. Matt and Shelby had some problems, and Shelby cheated on him with Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character, whatever his name is. And so now there's a bunch of drama to really go into this reality show that he's trying to get cooking. And that's part of what's kind of entertaining about this season to me, as you start seeing the interactions between these actors and the real people, and all this drama going on, and it's kind of entertaining, and seeing how they interact and how they start to drive each other crazy. And obviously the actors don't believe in the ghost stuff, and the real people are like, okay, you'll see, basically. And that's what's kind of fun about this new season, or the way it's going at the moment. But when shit starts to go crazy and things really start happening, people start to freak the hell out. This past episode, episode 7, a lot really happens. This show actually is getting pretty disturbing in some places. It's really pretty entertaining, to be honest. Now, Kathy Bates, who played the butcher in the reenactments, she's really going crazy. They actually did not invite her back to the house to be part of this new show, but they actually put a restraining order against her. She's been getting in trouble with the law. She's been running around thinking she's the butcher, swinging a cleaver around. She's obsessed with the butcher, and she's obsessed with being part of this show. So then she shows back up around the house, and she starts going crazy, terrorizing everybody. And it's really quite entertaining. Like I said, Kathy Bates does a pretty good job in this. But really, none of our characters are in a good spot. Some of them aren't even around anymore. Now, I'm not going to spoil anything else. I've told you enough about my thoughts on the first 7 episodes of American Horror Story Roanoke. I'll get back to you when the season concludes and I share my final review on the season. But until then, this is Antalk, the weekly comic conversation. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Happy Halloween. See you later.